A weekend hike with friends is always a fun idea, until a big brown bear decides to join. Disclaimer: the bear's idea of fun is slightly different. Grizzly bears are always in a power-saving mode. They don't use their strength or energy for things that they can get an easy route for. That is why they mostly prey on animals that are easy to hunt, such as deer, moose, and salmon. Grizzlies generally avoid humans, but if people encroach on their territory, they are more than capable of defending themselves aggressively. In this video, we are going to share the details of a deadly encounter between 7 hikers and 1 bear. The fight ended with only one of them walking out of the scene alive. Take your guesses, or watch till the end. A group of friends decided to go on a hike in the Glacier National Park in Montana, USA. The park has multiple hiking trails. The friends decided to hike the Highline Trail since it is not that difficult, and it has sweeping views of the Continental Divide. There are also higher chances of encountering wildlife there. But the 7 friends only considered meeting a few deer or squirrels. Coming face to face with a bear had not crossed their wildest imaginations. The hiking group was lively, featuring 3 adventurous girls, Rachel, Ava, and Claire, and 4 spirited boys, Mark, Ryan, Luca, and Nathan. All 7 of them were part of a media club in their college. Despite having different majors, the club brought them together, and they had become good friends. For their annual recreational trip, Nathan suggested they go on a hike. He was a nature lover and went on solo hikes quite often. Every hike developed a deeper sense of appreciation for nature in him, and he wanted his friends to enjoy that experience too. Exhausted from city life, the group loved the idea of a getaway in nature far from the metropolis's hustle. They had a midterm break at the beginning of October, so they decided to go on the hike on Sunday, October 6, 2024. There are camping areas near the Highline Trail, and Nathan had reserved one for the group. Little did he know the group would not even be able to make it to the camping ground. On the day of the hike, they gathered in the nearest coffee shop, grabbed their breakfast, and left for the trail in Ryan's Highlander. Nathan had far more experience than any of them, so they unanimously decided for him to lead. He had made all the arrangements and divided tasks into 3 pairs. Rachel and Ava were supposed to bring some snacks. Ryan and Mark were assigned to bring sleeping gear and lights, while Claire and Luca brought a water cooler and fire starter. The campsite was going to provide food and cooking utensils for them. Nathan advised them to pack light so the hike would be comfortable. It was a long hike, so they reached the park around 7:30. They wanted to get to the campsite early and set up the fire in daylight. Logan Pass was the starting point for the hike. They parked their car there and set off on their trek. Nathan led the way, and other hikers followed in his footsteps, except for Nathan. All 6 of them were going on a hike for the first time. They had heard so many hiking stories from Nathan and were excited to experience the joy of camping. The main goal of the trip was to get away from technology and screens, so they left their phones in the car. Mark had a digital compass and was allowed to keep it in his backpack in case they got lost in the woods. Turning their phones off and keeping them in the car was the first mistake they had made, and this one was going to cost them a lot more than just some missed emails. When friends are together, there is never a moment of peace, and they were not just 1 or 2. They were 7, all equally fun and enthusiastic. They were cracking jokes and laughing at each other while going up the trek. The trek was a little exhausting for beginners, and after 2 hours of giggles and chuckles, they were all gasping for air. Nathan, however, was fine and was laughing at them. Nathan hyped them up and encouraged them to get going. He was well aware of the animals in the park, and the longer they stayed on the trek, there were more chances of a wildlife encounter. So he kept pumping them to reach the campsite while the sun was still up. They had covered half the trail when they arrived at a clearing. The girls sprinted to it and dropped their limp bodies on the ground. They lay there panting while the boys also took a moment to catch their breath. Rachel opened her bag and distributed the snacks. Claire snatched the beef jerky from her. It was her favorite, and she jumped on her to get it back. The girls were fighting over a pack of jerky, and the rest of the group was cracking up. Among their loud laughter, they couldn't hear the rustling of leaves. But when they heard a roar, They froze to their feet. Ryan was the first one to turn around, and he couldn't turn back. A big claw landed on his face and caused deep cuts on his face. Blood sputtered out of the wounds. Rachel screamed as Ryan fell to the ground. That is when they realized they had an uninvited guest, a giant grizzly bear. The bear was so big that if he pressed its front feet on Ryan lying on the ground, it would have effortlessly crushed him. Nathan, who was standing on the right, ran and grabbed a fallen tree log. He thought the meek stick would be effective in making the bear go away. But what he did not know was that the bear had already decided to have bloodshed and was not going to let them off the hook that easily. Actually, the bear was digging up a hole near the clearing, and it was caught off guard by 7 visitors. More so, the visitors were so loud that the bear felt threatened by them. It had decided to get rid of them before they posed any harm to it. Ryan was its first target, and it had made a terrifying start to the killing spree. It bit him in the arm, and his screams echoed in the woods. The giant picked him up and flung him in the air with so much force that his arm came off. The sight of their friend's torn arm in a bear's mouth and his body lying in the distance made all of them run for their lives. Luca held Claire's hand and went to the right, hoping to get away from it. He signaled his friends to run too. But before he could bolt into the forest, Claire stumbled on a big rock and fell. Her knee was badly injured and it started bleeding. In slow motion, the grizzly walked towards her and looked at her eyes. It was as if it was smirking at her for thinking she could get away unscathed. The bear walked around her in a circle, sniffing her and maybe thinking about its next move. Claire held her breath while tears crawled down her cheek. She was in pain. But more than that, she was scared of being eaten by a bear. Seeing that the grizzly was busy with Claire, Luca moved slightly to the left, picked up a stone and threw it at the bear. Poor Luca thought he was encountering a dog and it could be distracted with a stone. Unfortunately, his rival was not a dog, so it stepped on Claire's chest, digging her in the ground, and jumped at Luca, straddling him under its body. Rachel and Ava stood there with their eyes wide open when Nathan ran towards them and suggested that they should climb a tree. He helped the girls climb a tree near them. They couldn't reach higher, but thought they were safe. Then Nathan himself also climbed a tree. Meanwhile, the bear was already halfway eating up their friend. But the irony was that they couldn't even mourn their friend because their mildest yelps could make them next on the bear's hit list. Rachel and Ava stood there with their eyes wide open when Nathan ran towards them and suggested that they should climb a tree. He helped the girls climb a tree near them. They couldn't reach higher, but thought they were safe. Then Nathan himself also climbed a tree. Meanwhile, the bear was already halfway eating up their friend. But the irony was that they couldn't even mourn their friend because their mildest yelps could make them next on the bear's hit list. Instead of climbing a tree, Mark thought hiding behind a giant rock was the right option. Claire was lying there in extreme pain. When the bear stepped on her, it fractured her shoulder, and she couldn't move. She dragged herself on the ground to get out of sight of the mighty hunter. As she reached an end, it was a slope. She didn't even realize it until she was rolling down the cliff. Her shrieks sent shivers down the spines of her friends. Falling off the cliff, her head hit a rock. That bang proved fatal for her. The bear looked up and saw her down the cliff. While glancing down at her body, it checked away another one of them. Claire had made its job easy. Then it started looking at the area. The other 4 held their breaths. They could be next on their way to the afterlife and were not quite up for the idea. Looking for them, the grizzly walked swiftly into the clearing. It steered into the woods to find them. Watching the bear walk away gave them a sense of relief. But then they heard Mark's final words. Oh my God, it's on me." It had smelled him and had silently walked around the giant rock to bite his leg. Mark tried to hold him off with his bare hands, but its claws on his neck just around his jugular vein halted his movement. He was behind the rock, so his friends couldn't see him. But the roars of the grizzly and Mark's ear-piercing wails were enough for them to imagine what their friend was going through under the fierce blows of the giant bear. The bear's mouth was covered in blood as it walked. It left behind bloody paw marks. Rachel was holding on to the tree for her life. But nature betrayed her at the most crucial moment. The branch she was standing on couldn't bear her weight longer and snapped. She fell to the ground with a loud thud. The fall was intense enough to make her see stars. She only came to her senses when the bear was right in her face. It raised its paw and caressed her cheek gently. With her eyes wide open, she was trying to understand its move, and then the bear showed her who the real boss was. It cradled and attacked her with its sharp claws. The intensity of each blow kept on increasing. It was burrowing into her. Then with one final move, it threw her lifeless body away. The bear had gotten a hunch of Ava up the tree. It grabbed the tree in its front paws and started shaking the tree hysterically. It made full use of its immense power. Ava tried to hold on to the tree, but her grip was no match for the giant's strength. She fell right on its face. If she was to die, she wanted to make it easier for the bear and herself, so she didn't resist when the bear devoured her. Nathan was the only one of the group left. He was hoping the bear would leave after killing all his friends. He was devastated that his friends were gone, but he couldn't possibly climb down the tree to accompany his friends. That would have been absurd. The grizzly was not leaving. Nathan felt like it was looking for him. At that moment, he recalled if he had heard anything about bears knowing how to count, because this one was not forgetting that he had one more target. Nathan had been on the tree for so long, his limbs were going numb. He had a pocket knife in the pocket of his cargo pants. The knife slid out of his pocket and dropped to the ground. In a different situation, that knife could have been helpful, but in that instant it provided means for his death. Sensing the motion, the bear lunged toward the tree, and it hit the tree with all its force. The impact sent the tree swaying and caused Nathan to lose his balance. He fell. The bear took its time, enjoying the last one of its targets. The bear had taken down 7 adult humans in merely 10 minutes. What a powerful creature. After unleashing a bloodbath, it walked away unharmed and unbothered. And that is how 7 friends who were hoping to enjoy camping were now lying there lifeless. If the friends had stayed quiet and had not posed a threat to the bear, the hike might have ended differently. That was all for the gruesome story of 7 college fellows and a bear. Thank you for watching. For more such videos, subscribe to the channel and do not forget to like and share.